Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon, Wednesday afternoon at 3 p.m. I'm sure everybody has had a long day, and so we appreciate you joining us today for this conversation with our recent alumna. I love these panels. Next to graduation, having these panels is probably one of the most favorite things that I get to experience here in the college. Just really love to hear the journey that our alumni are taking out in the world and doing some fantastic transformative work in so many different fields. And today is no different. So we are alumni panel number 2 for April. I'm Janine Perez. I'm the director of the Student Success Center here in the College of Education. And I'm going to go ahead and just cover a couple of quick housekeeping items. And then I'm going to pass things over to my co-host, Dani Umana, who is one of our student ambassadors, and she's going to lead the conversation today. So just really quickly, as you have come in, probably saw the little authorization or acknowledgement that we're recording this event today. We know that so many of you are in class right now or working or just need to take a little bit of a break this afternoon. And so we want to be able to share this with you later on in a time that's convenient. So it will be available on our YouTube channel. We do encourage questions during this session. So if you want to ask questions, please feel free to use the features that we have here in Zoom. We are in meeting format, so you can use the chat right below the little chat box. Type in your questions. You can raise your hand, unmute yourself. We really want this to be an informal kind of experience, an opportunity for you to get to know our alumni and what they've been up to and have those questions answered. And then when we're done with our conversation, just want to encourage you to stay tuned. I'll be sharing some details about upcoming events that we have throughout April and May. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing and we'll just be in community here with our lovely faces and hand things over to Dani.
Hi there, I'm Dani. I'm a student ambassador, like Janine said. I'll be kind of facilitating here today. So we've got wonderful panelists with us. I'm so excited to hear about both of your experiences. So whoever would like to go first, would you mind just kind of sharing your journey through SJSU and beyond?
Sure, I'll go first. So my name is Alison Pentland. I use she, her pronouns, and I went to San Jose State University. When I graduated 7 years ago now from the Speech Language Pathology, Communication Disorders and Sciences department, and have been practicing as a speech language pathologist since then. And actually am now back at SJSU, can't get enough. I'm back and lecturing in one of the classes in the same department. So I'm now working as a practicing speech language pathologist and working with soon to be speech language pathologists who are in the grad school program at San Jose State.
Okay. My name is Karina Rivera. I use she, her, they, them pronouns. I transferred to SJSU in fall of 2016. I graduated spring 2018. I took a year off because I wasn't too sure what kind of master's program I wanted to pursue, but I did complete the Child and Adolescent Development Program at SJSU, and I am currently now a master's student at Central Washington University, and I'm completing a family and child life master's program through there.
That's so awesome. It's great to hear about, people who came all the way through San Jose State and just have their heart here and so like enjoyed it so much that they came back, but also having a fellow transfer student. That's so exciting. I know that like a big chunk of the San Jose State current students, matriculate partway through their college career, and it's definitely a fun place to come to. All right. So if no one has any questions, I'll just go ahead and start off. So my first question for both of you, and feel free to decide between yourselves which one would like to answer first. What kind of inspires you to work in your field or to pursue studies in, your particular master's program? How did you find the right fit for your values and your interests?
I'll go first. I came across Child Life when I was working as a camp counselor for Los Angeles Unified School District. A coworker of mine was pursuing their internship for Child Life, and he kind of told me about it, and I looked more into it. And the more I realized, the more I researched, the more I realized that I was fit for this field. It's a field that you basically advocate for children and families. You try to make their experiences in the hospitals or within the medical settings a little bit less stressful for them. You explain to them what is happening to their bodies, what the procedure is going to look like, what medications they're going to take, and you also use a lot of like therapeutic interventions with them. So connecting that with my personal experience, I have been a victim of sexual abuse as a child, and it would have been beneficial for me to have someone explain to me what was happening to my body or what had happened. And I feel like that kind of drives my passion for the field. I want to be that person that is able to explain to children what is happening within their bodies, but also within their family unit and with the environment as well that they're in.
Thanks, Karina. So for me, I had no idea really what I wanted to do for a long time. And when I was actually in college, I went and got my undergraduate degree in LA, actually. And through like all of college, I was still like, I have no idea what I want to do, and ended up developing a really nice relationship with a mentor of mine there. And I basically went to him and said, I have no idea what I want to do. And I said, these are my favorite classes. I want to do something with people, but like, I don't know where this leads me. And he, in all of his wisdom, was like, well, have you ever heard of speech language pathology? And I was like, no, what's that? And it was another one of those things where I like researched it, and it sort of seemed like it fit for what I was looking for. Some of the like aligned with some of my values. I knew I wanted to work with people and kids. It gave me enough flexibility that there was lots of wiggle room within the field, but was specific enough that I could, continue my education and figure out if it was really for me. And so yeah, just like through those kinds of connections, that's how I ended up in speech pathology, and then that's how I ended up at San Jose State. And just sort of similarly with the rest of my speech language pathologist journey through grad school and afterwards, it's been sort of the same kind of thing where I've ended up having these mentors and establishing these relationships with staff and teachers who have guided me onto my path. I wouldn't have gotten here without a lot of support from people.
I think that's beautiful. I think both of you shared such powerful points, and there's a term that we've kind of developed around here. I think by the Chicanics Latinx Student Success Center, they came up with a term called vulnerageous, and it's basically where you build the courage to share the most vulnerable parts of your life. And I'm just so my goodness, so inspired. But I have both of you also took your interest in helping others to find the right fit and the right career for you. And I can tell that you both have a lot of passion for it. I think also having survived some personal experiences, right? through abuse of some kind or another, which I can relate. It kind of just helps bring a new depth to your passions and to how you interact with people. It just makes it much more meaningful. So thank you for sharing. I think that's awesome. So when you guys were in undergrad, I know that for Alison, it might not necessarily have been at SJSU, but did you have any particular experiences that contributed to your skills as a professional, or were there any extracurricular activities that were meaningful to you in developing your passions?
So for me, I wasn't at San Jose State for my undergrad, but just to reflect on that experience of mine, I think for personally, when I was an undergrad, I still really didn't know where I was headed or what I wanted to do. And I know a lot of people feel that way. And what I was able to do, and also not everybody has the privilege to be able to do this, but I was at a 4-year institution and was able to sort of hop around and take different classes in different areas to rule things in or rule things out. And I think that is a piece of advice I would give somebody if they have the ability to do that. There were some classes that I took that I absolutely hated. And I think at some level that's sort of unavoidable, but in hindsight, it gave me so much information because it was this very clear, no, that is not what I want to do. And helped me on this ultimate path of finding what I do want to do. I had to eliminate some things. And so there were some inevitable courses that were not my favorite. But that, ultimately, ruled things out and led me to what I wanted to pursue after college.
Sort of the same for me as well. For when I was in community college, I had no idea what I wanted. I just kind of took classes just to take classes. And then I realized, okay, education could be one thing. And then I was so set on special education and that didn't work out. And then I just wanted to be a teacher. And then I realized after being a preschool teacher, I am about to pull all my gray hairs out. I can't. And so I found child life. And then, it's been child life ever since. As far as my experiences at SJSU and how that has contributed to, me being in a graduate program, I worked for the Child Development Center for the whole 2 years I was at SJSU. I worked at the Child Development Center on 8th Street. That gave me the opportunity to learn how to deal with children in more in depth. I had one classroom for the entire time I was there. So I really got to know the kiddos. I really got to know their parents. As far as the professors specifically, Perez, our professor present right here, she, two of her classes really taught me a lot. There was, I forget the name, sorry, but one of the courses was, really looking into nonprofits and really looking into what kinds of jobs you can apply for. And, really taking the time to consider where you want to work. I feel like that has been carried over for me as of right now too. I don't currently have a job, but that's because I'm looking for the perfect job that I want, that I don't want to just apply and quit because I know myself I will. And so I'm taking the time to really research the kinds of hospitals that I want to work in and the environment. That's something that I learned through her class. Also for Professor Medica, sorry, I can't pronounce her name, but yeah, Medica. Her one class of adolescent development, it really taught me how to put things into perspective for teens, how to take that information and put it into my child life practicum that I completed. And even so now, when I'm thinking about my personal experiences through my nephew, seeing him grow up, everything that I have learned from SJSU has translated in different areas of my life. So very thankful and grateful for my time at SJSU.
Thank you for sharing. I feel like a common theme between the both of you is just having experienced trial and error. And the reality of life is we won't get it right on the first try. Very rarely we'll get it right. And it takes a long time to figure out what you want. And I feel like a lot of students right now can relate to that. So I think it's great that you're sharing both of your experiences and how, it's taking, even if you're not there yet, it's kind of taking you to the place where, you'll arrive at the right destination. I'm wondering, does anyone have any questions at the moment based off of, what we've heard so far? Okay, no worries. I did have another couple questions for you. So one has been, how do you maintain like a work-life balance or a work-study, or a study and life balance? What activities do you enjoy when you have some free time?
Well, this is something I am working on, especially with the transition to working from home. It's been a little bit of a back step in my work-life balance. But I think that this is, for me, at least, this is another one of those like trial and error things. On my like intro slide, when I introduce myself in webinars and stuff, I usually am like, oh, this is a little bit about me. And every single time I go in, every single semester I go in to update it, I have a new hobby. So I just changed it and I started saying that I'm a serial hobby starter, because I keep trying to start something that will get me work-life balance, and then I get distracted and 3 months later I have a new hobby. So but I think I'm hoping that at least that like awareness of trying to establish some work-life balance and trying to do something, having something present in my life that is not just work. I think that was especially challenging as a student and as a graduate student, especially, I was like living on campus, working on campus, studying on campus, and it was just everything was school. So now I'm living in my work, working in my work, and trying to find that balance. I think that's definitely a lifelong goal of mine. But just being aware of it and trying to do that trial and error with non-work and non-study related things, whether that's like yoga or crocheting or whatever, hobby of the month you pick. That's what I'm trying to do.
So kind of relate to that for undergrad. You, especially for the child development department, it was a lot of writing, a lot of reading, so many essays too, like every 2 weeks. So it definitely taught me how to, time management. But now that I am in graduate school, it's a whole different ball game, I want to say. And then, the whole COVID thing and everything being virtual, it's a lot. But as far as how do you maintain that work life or study balance, I am horrible at it as of right now. Trying to learn how to kind of get in a set schedule of, this is my time to study, this is my time to just be me or be with my wife or my, my 2 fur babies or whatever. But definitely one thing that does help is volunteering. I volunteer at the Children's Hospital here in Virginia, and it's amazing. It gives me some time to just be away from school related stuff, or even away from the wife or away from the fur babies. Definitely gives you some time to give back. I feel like that's the best way for me to take care of me, in a sense.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly valid. I mean, COVID really threw us all in for a loop. But yeah, I totally love volunteering too. I also volunteer at a pediatric clinic, and it's just the best. Like, it definitely takes your pressures away, your worries away. You just get to go there and just be with the kids, and kind of brings you back to your why. But I love also the experimenting that gets done with Alison. That sounds like a lot of fun. And then you have always something new to talk about, right? All right. So I know that Alison mentioned having some mentors. Have either of you had any mentors that have supported you in your career? And how would you recommend for recent graduates or even undergrads to find mentors in their field?
So yeah, I think this is a huge component of life, but also specifically like education, the what's the saying, like it's not what you know, but who you know, that kind of thing, where so much of what you're able to get through an education is gaining the knowledge and experience. But also one of the things that I think is less taken advantage of, like in a positive way, is those networks and those connections of developing relationships with your peers or with your professors or lecturers, or other people within the college, and then continuing those relationships post graduation. So when I was a student, I sort of tried to just sign up for everything that came across my path, which not all of those things necessarily like worked out and stuck, but I met people through those kinds of things. So like, for example, like NISHLA, which is the like national speech language, National Speech Language Association, but for students. And so, I was like, sure, I'll join that. And like, to be perfectly honest, I don't necessarily remember exactly what we did as NISHLA, but I know the people that I met there, and I, still have those folks' email addresses if I needed to reach out to them. And so, yeah, so I think that just like really milking those relationships and nurturing them so that you establish those relationships and can learn from them while you're in school, but then also out of school. And speaking as sort of on the flip side, as currently I mentioned that I'm a lecturer I co-teach one of the classes in the Communication Disorders and Sciences department. And most of my office hours is like just me sitting by myself. And I think that is, I remember as a student, professors would say, oh, come to my office hours. And like, I was like, well, I don't have any specific questions, or like, you're really intimidating, or like, I don't know to just come talk to you. That's weird. And I totally felt that. And I like never went to office hours ever. And now on the flip side, I'm like, oh my God, nobody comes to office hours ever. And I think that really is a time when, like, I would love it if students just came by to say hi, or came by to tell me that some assignment was hard, or come by to tell me they don't like something about the way I was teaching. I mean, even if it's something like that, I would love for it to be something positive also, and we can develop a relationship and like talk about what you want to do with your future. But really anything like that, I would be totally open to, but nobody comes. And so I think that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give students is like, take advantage of those kinds of things. We are literally, as professors and lecturers, we're literally just like sitting there in our office hours waiting for you to come talk to us. So please don't be shy, even if it's just, and you come and you say, hi, I don't have any specific questions and I don't have any specific feedback, but I just like don't really know what I'm doing. Okay, awesome. Let's just sit and talk about that for 20 minutes. So don't be shy to be, and I love that new word. What was it, Danny? Vulnerageous?
Vulnerageous, yeah.
Yeah. Be vulnerageous, yeah.
So I couldn't agree more. Go to office hours. Go to office hours. Go to office hours. Ask all the questions. Even if it's just for like I don't know, you got one wrong question on the test or something. I don't know. Whatever the question is, just go and ask. Go say hi. I didn't really understand that the first couple semesters at SJSU. I understood it more towards the end, and I wish I would have done so from the get-go. But as far as mentors and, who have supported you throughout my career, it's important to develop relationships with, yes, professors as well, but also outside of the school environment, especially for child life. a lot of professors at SJSU don't know what child life is. I felt like during my time there, I was practically the only student that was interested in child life, and I didn't meet other students that were interested in the same field that I was in. Everybody wanted to be a teacher or, you know, whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to do child life, but I have no one to talk to, no one to relate to. So for me, it was really important to get in contact with people online. There's a Facebook group for those of you who might want to know. There's a Facebook group called Child Life Connect or something like that. I can send the information to Perez later, where, you know, it's just a bunch of students, child life specialists, managers from all over the country. And, you know, we just go in there and ask questions. How do you do this? How do you, you know, do applications for internships, and just random questions. That's the best way for me to get in contact with other people that are interested in the field, especially when you're in an environment that you don't have those kinds of people. So definitely office hours and social media advantage of that for sure.
Wow, that was amazing advice. I definitely couldn't have put it any better. I liked how creative you were, Karina, with finding resources online. It can be definitely very lonely if you don't have anyone else who shares your passions or your interests, but finding a community and keeping in touch that way can only add to your experience, right? And then to Alison's point as well, I can definitely, you know, support that idea, visit office hours. I have not regretted a single time personally that I've gone to office hours, especially speaking for CDS. Our faculty members are just so experienced and so knowledgeable that you always are going to gain some new insight if you get to go and just chat with them for office hours, and they're super approachable. And I hope that's the case for everyone else's faculty. But yeah, those are great tips. Yeah, unless we get any more questions, I'll just go ahead and ask one more. So I'm wondering, what are the different positions you have held? So for example, like even if you graduated high school and just worked, you know, at a restaurant or something, like how did that kind of factor into the skills that you have now? And how did you identify those transferable skills?
That's a good question. You're making me think on what are the odd jobs I had. I'm like, oh, I painted houses. I don't think that directly helped me here. I'm trying to think. I think that this might be another one of those things where the ones that I'm most aware of are the jobs that, like, just in reflection, are the jobs that like didn't necessarily help me. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think you know, like for example, like camp counselor, and I was in charge of, you know, 30 kids at one time. And I had always thought, oh, maybe I want to be a teacher. Maybe I want to go into education. And some people are really great managing a group of 30 children running around. That's awesome. I am not one of those people who loves chasing 30 children around. I like, you know, one for each hand. That, you know, I mean, it was a great experience, but it's that kind of thing where I was like, oh, okay, yes, I like working with kids, confirmed, check, but also I gained some insight about how many kids I want to be working with at a time. And so that sort of rules out, you know, teaching, and maybe there's another kind of area within education that I could get into, which ended up happening, speech language pathology, right? You usually don't have a group of 30 in front of me. Yeah, so I think that those kinds of things where it was just like confirmation of, yes, I like working with children. Yes, I am passionate about education, and some like definitely would rather not paint houses in 90-degree heat. Like, you know, just that was my sort of trajectory. But I think that we've all had, you know, odd jobs that gave us, I'm sure there's some insight from painting houses that I can't reflect on right now.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, go for it.
So I currently I'm only about school right now, so I don't have any leadership roles. What did help me was to gain as much knowledge as I could. I've been a preschool teacher, a camp counselor, a dance coach. I did an internship for the program at SJSU at the LGBTQ Youth Center. That was helpful. I currently volunteer at a child life department at the Children's Hospital. And I just completed my child life practicum, which was super helpful in really kind of submerging me into the environment and learning how to interact with families and patients. But not only families and patients, but also the medical staff. It was really important for me to have that exposure that you don't get as a volunteer. As a volunteer, you're just kind of like, oh, here you go, like you bring in activities and you just kind of sit down and play with them, but you don't really have, it's not within your scope to interact so much with parents and the patients and the medical staff. It's more just basic. The practicum really gave me that submersion into really practicing my skills and being able to comfortably walk into a room and introduce myself, introduce my services, and have the abilities to assess the patient, assess the family as a whole and as individuals. So definitely for child life is very important for you to gain those experiences. So yeah, if it's one piece of advice I would give students is to gain as much experiences as you can.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. That was great advice. But yeah, I mean, there are times that you just find out, 30 kids is not for me, or you know what, this is thrilling, let me pursue that, right? I know personally, I agree with Allison, like that's what drew me to speech is I love kids, but I cannot imagine taking care of a room full of them at a time all day long. I'm like, no, one-on-one. So I think that's awesome. And Karina, yes, I think practicums are super valuable. Volunteer experiences are valuable. So definitely would encourage students to sign up to participate in any of those as soon as you get the opportunity, because the reality is like hands-on learning is really what you're going to carry with you. Even more so than the theoretical knowledge, and being able to have experiences that allow you to meld both of those, to have the theoretical, but also learn to apply that to real life is what's going to help you become a really strong professional. All right, have a few more questions. So one of them is, has the wage gap ever come up? I know this is kind of a tricky subject, but I feel like as a woman, and I know that for a lot of education and Lurie College students, it's made up of women, we're going to encounter that at some point. So just curious if you ever have, how did you resolve it?
So I haven't run into this as a challenge that I'm aware of. I think it might, exist, but I'm just unaware of what other people are making compared to me. But one of the things that I will just make a comment on as far as the wages is that I would encourage everybody, including myself, to advocate for yourself, and not only in comparison to other people who might be doing the same job, but also for you and what skills you have and what you bring to the table, right? So a lot of times there are, and I hear about these things, and I'm like, I didn't even know that existed. Like there might be a stipend if you speak a second language, or stipends for speaking a second language, or if you took some extra classes, then you can get bumped up on the pay scale to the next tier, and things like that, where people don't necessarily talk about these things because it's like, hush hushed, money is private, which I totally understand if people don't want to share their own information. But there's some information out there that like I wasn't even aware of. You could get a stipend for speaking another language, or for having taken a class in a specific subject, or having some certain credential. So just like maybe asking around about those kinds of things, so that you can make sure to advocate for yourself and get paid what you deserve to get paid.
I definitely agree with that, the advocating, especially in child life. It's a field that is not so well known. It's growing, but not where it needs to be. Um, so therefore it doesn't pay as, as well as, I don't know, a teacher. I don't really know the figures there, but it's on the low end of the spectrum. um, so definitely agreed with Alison, advocating for your skills, your education, and any research that you've conducted within the field of child life, that can possibly, give you, if it's not the pay, possibly benefits. It's really important to take into consideration also for child life, depending on the hospital that you work in, it will depend on what kind of pay you have. A lot of people have this misconception that if you have a master's degree in child life or a master's degree in general, and you're trying to be in the field of child life, you will get paid more. And that's not the case. It depends on the hospital. It depends on the population and the location of the hospital. So definitely doing your research and advocating for yourself afterwards.
Yeah, thank you. I know that it's, that experience that you have with trying to find, career opportunities in child life, just thinking towards the future. Jobs are competitive, and yeah, any research can definitely give you an advantage as far as qualifications as well as pay. I think those are definitely important things that we can consider at the undergrad level. Like, it's never too early to get interested in research. So definitely ask your professors, email around and just see like if they are taking any volunteers. It can't hurt you. It can only help you. Let's see. My next question is, what values related to diversity and cultural competency are practiced in your work setting? What can upcoming graduates do to advocate for equity in the workplace?
Well, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in this area. In particular, just speaking as a speech language pathologist, speech language pathology has often been ranked the least diverse field. It's like 97% white cis women, as far as the last statistic I looked at. So so there's a lot that can be done with that as far as advocacy for getting more folks into programs to become speech language pathologists. But then once you do have that education, then actually practicing. So yeah, that's something that is being worked on, needs to be worked on more. Also, just sort of tagging, I don't know if this is specifically answering this question, but tagging on to the comment about research. One of the professors who I established a relationship with at San Jose State in my undergrad, we've stayed in touch, stayed friends, and this is something that I talk about with her relatively often. And we actually have started working on a project to do some research about BIPOC perspectives in the specific field of speech language pathology. And so it's just one of those, I'm only saying that just because I think it's one of these things where you can say, yes, work needs to be done, but then a lot of the times the work that you can actually do comes from these kinds of relationships and projects and opportunities that might be available to you because of SJSU. So just take all of the opportunities you can to advocate for yourself and others.
Again, I agree with Alison. Research. You want something to change, you want more diversity, you have to be able to do the research and be willing to do the research in order for that change to come about. For, again, child life, it's, well, the only people of color that I've met have been through online social media. That's it. That are in the same field. I met one person from practicum that she was my supervisor, and she was Latina. The manager was white. Predominantly, when you're looking at the field, it's white, and that's one of the things that's a little hard to navigate, especially as a Latina student, not knowing, not having those connections and not having all the resources that, the ACLP requires. The ACLP is the organization that accredits child life specialists. That all the requirements that they require, it's a lot. Application fees, making copies of your internship applications. And you're not just applying to one or two, it's a very competitive field. So you need to be applying to like 20, 25, people apply to 30 plus. Membership fee too. They charge like a yearly membership that gets you discounts to webinars and stuff like that, but you still have to pay for those. So definitely a hard field to be in as a person of color, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. So definitely doing the research again, and hoping to create some change.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. I appreciate both of your commitment to, adding new perspectives into your field. It can definitely be challenging to navigate a field and a career that you may be the only person of color in the room or the only person of color in their list of applicants. So being prepared with knowing the skills that you can bring and, getting good relationships with people who are going through the same thing or who have gone through it at some point can really carry you far. I know that for sure. So another question I would have for you is, have there been any projects that you have been working on or that you have worked on in the past that were super meaningful to you? And it doesn't necessarily have to be related to, the field that you're in right now, but throughout your journey, has there been something that has stuck with you or something you learned by participating in some kind of project or class or something?
So one thing I'm super proud of that has recently happened is I have the possibility of my research being presented at a national conference. Not too sure what conference or all the details yet. I'm still waiting for it, to be official or whatever. But one of my projects for graduate school, it involved working with another student and just kind of coming together and seeing how COVID has impacted the parent-child relationship and any kinds of stressors that have been putting a dent into that relationship. And we found a couple of statistically significant differences in those relationships. So definitely excited about that. In terms of anything else, my practicum, completing my practicum it gave me a lot of knowledge and a lot of just experience, so much experience to work with not only families, the medical staff, but also be involved in palliative end of life and hospice cases, and learning how to deal with that and all the emotions that come with that while in the room with, the doctors and nurses, the patient that, is dying and their families, learning how to deal with those emotions. That was very, very super helpful.
I am trying to narrow it down to one to talk about, but I feel like I've had a lot of really fabulous opportunities that I've been able to learn from. So the one that I picked is when I was at San Jose State University as part of the department for speech pathology, there is a clinic, like an on-site clinic, where we saw folks from the community and provided speech and language services for folks from around the area. I remember there was an email sent before I even arrived to campus for my grad program. It was this email saying, hey, we're taking applications for a clinic assistant position. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. I don't even know anything about speech pathology yet. I don't even know what you do during clinic, but sure, sign me up. And so I, applied to it and got one of the positions. And that was really, really great for a number of reasons. One, I was just like around the department more. And so I got to know the professors a little more like closely on like a, friendly outside of the classroom level. But also I was able to interact with so many different clients with different, abilities and communication styles and ages. And even though I didn't necessarily have the clinical experience to work with a 5-year-old and the 13-year-old and the 25-year-old and the 60 and 70-year-old, even though I wasn't in all of those clinics as my practicum, I was still got the opportunity to interact with those people as the clinic assistant, because I did intake and, helped them sign up for clinic and stuff, like office-y stuff. And so that was really cool because I realized that for example, I really liked working with adults more than I thought I would. I liked interacting with these grownups. I had always just pictured myself kids. And that is where I ended up, and I'm happy here. But that was sort of surprising, and I didn't even take an extra clinic to do it. I just was around and on campus and part of this, a clinic assistant, so that I was able to get a little more perspective about the other kinds of things that speech pathologists might do and people who speech pathologists might work with. So really, I think the big picture of just one of what I'm saying is just say yes to everything you can. And, later scale it back and try and establish boundaries. But in grad school and in college, I think that just saying yes to as many things as I could opened up a lot of possibilities for me to learn. So if you are able to do that, do that. Karina, I see you raised your hand.
One of the things that you just said reminded me of a time I went to your office hours, Perez, and I was doing the internship at the LGBTQ youth space. I don't know if you remember this, and I told you I'm not doing anything. I don't feel like I'm learning anything, And the best advice I got from her that day that I took onto my practicum was ask for it. Asked to be taken into these spaces, whether it's workshops in the community or, whatever it is, ask for it. Advocate for yourself. And that was one of the things that I did during my practicum. There was my first end of life case that was presented at that time. She was not about to take me because she didn't know if I felt comfortable with it. And it was kind of like a quick type of go. And, I told her, can I come? I want to come. I want that kind of exposure. I haven't had, a case where I am in that environment, and I would love to learn from it. And she said yes. And after that day, unfortunately, but fortunately, there was a lot of patients that were dying because of COVID. So unfortunately, but fortunately, I got the experience to tag along with her and learn how to deal with these kinds of cases. So if it's one thing that I learned was to advocate for yourself and just get as much experience as you can.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that you had so much experience at the front lines and making an impact on those families that were struggling because of COVID. I mean, they were very lucky to have someone so caring by their side. I think that the project that you mentioned also sounds incredible, and I hope that you do get to present it. So yes, well done. Trying to take initiative and, add perspective about what people were going through in COVID. It's been tough. We're all quarantining, so we don't really get to learn about each other's perspectives. We only know our reality, but, projects like that will really help educate people about lived experiences. And Alison, the clinic, that sounds like so much fun. And I think that it's definitely worth mentioning the experience that you can get just from having a quote unquote passive role, that you're not giving them therapy necessarily directly, but just based off of interacting with them, expanding your horizons. I think those are all really valuable things to contribute. So thank you for sharing. So let me see if I can find another one for you. We're going through my list pretty quickly. Have you had any leadership roles, and what prepared you to come into those roles?
Okay, I'll go. Yeah, I have had some leadership roles. My gut reaction is to say I was totally unprepared for those leadership roles. I made it up as I went. But I don't think that is fair to say of all of the people who really have supported me and leaders that I have followed who've shown me what kind of leader I want to be or what kind of leader I don't want to be. So I don't think it's fair to say that I wasn't prepared at all, but there's definitely a level of just diving in head first and not necessarily feeling 100% comfortable with everything and getting outside your comfort zone and then having that be an opportunity for growth. One of the things, the first thing that just came to mind is that I was asked by a connection at San Jose State University if I wanted to join this, the board for this specific area of speech pathology. And I was like, what? I don't even know what that means. Like, what do I have to do? What's the time commitment? What skills do I need? I've never done anything like that. And they were like, no, it'll be fine. Just do it. And I mean, I'm doing it. But it's definitely one of those things where like I'm in year 3 now. And the first year I was like really feeling like I was making it up as I went along. But now I feel a lot more comfortable in the role. And I wouldn't have ever gotten to this place of comfort if I hadn't jumped in and been uncomfortable first. So, I mean, obviously we can't just go out and like provide services that we're unqualified to provide or something like that. But as far as leadership positions and challenging yourself to just go for it, I think that's been my experience. Is I've just tried to go for it, and most of the time I think it works out. I think that we're all capable of a lot more than we really think we are, and if we put ourselves in those positions, we usually rise to the occasion.
So I have not been in leadership roles. I don't know why. I feel like I've kind of made it, doesn't sound so good, but I feel like I kind of made it my mission to not be put in those positions because I don't feel comfortable. It's out of my comfort zone, right? I have taken little bits here and there, being able to train volunteers at the hospital I'm at. The practicum that I was in, I was able to, be by myself at some points in time, be by myself and interact with patients, provide, developmentally appropriate interventions for them all by myself. So I feel like I'm still learning how to be comfortable in these spaces, especially within child life. You have a medical team that, one, doesn't know who you are, two, doesn't really know what you do. And so they're always questioning you, like, oh, who are you? Well, what are you here for? Or, oh, the patient is fine, they don't need anything, type of thing, right? So it's definitely a learning progress for me.
And if I can just add one other thing, I think that some of these kinds of things we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to have certain roles and take on certain responsibilities really early on. But like career is usually a pretty long trajectory, right? Like there's a long time until retirement. And so I think that like even just in talking to some like other students, I feel like there's just this pressure of like, oh, I'm not ready to mentor somebody now, or I'm not ready to take on this position now, or I'm not ready to, get that promotion to that next step of the job because I'm not ready for that. And I think that at some level, like just go for it. But at the same time, you don't have to just put all that pressure on yourself that it's all going to happen right now. Because yeah, there's a lot more in this world that we can do, a lot more time for that.
Yes, I think that was great advice, Alison, both of the ones that you offered just now and earlier when you shared at first. And I think leadership isn't necessarily restricted to just being in a position of authority and telling people what to do, but it's about the way that you influence others and the way that you set an example of what it means to be a professional, what it means to be caring and to be supportive. And I think both of you have those skills within you. And I can definitely see that you do. And I'm sure it will make a impact in your community. All right, so let me see if I have another question. Yes, so did you have any experiences in your undergrad that you would advise, or how can I put this? Sorry, the wrong one. Okay. What would you have done differently in your undergrad if you'd had the chance? What would you have gone back and done differently if there was anything you would have done differently and that you would advise students to do now?
I think, I mean, there's a couple things that come to mind. I think one would be go to office hours. Not to like just keep repeating myself, but I really think that's something that I didn't do as a student. And it's one of these like hindsight is 2020 things, especially now as somebody who's offering office hours. And I'm like, come and talk to me. I really think that was a missed opportunity on my part. Oh, and I lost the second thing. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is I think that at some level, how do I put this? At some point, I feel like a lot of points, I feel like I got so overwhelmed with school and trying to be a good student and please my professors that I forgot I was there for myself. I don't know if I'm like saying that in a way that makes sense. But you know, like I paid a lot of money to go to school and learn, and it was an investment in myself. And I wish that I had maintained that perspective a little more, that I was there for myself. And I mean, ultimately for others to be able to serve others, but it was for, you know, I was paying to get the knowledge and experience for myself. So I was able to do that. And I think sometimes I just got so caught up in the little things, or, you know, didn't do the readings or didn't do the assignments as well as I really kind of should have. And like the only person who it was hurting in the end was me, not as some sort of guilt trip thing, but it's just that the reason you're doing those assignments, the reason you're doing the readings, the reason you're there is not because you're trying to make your professors happy, but it's because you're trying to learn for yourself. And I felt that as a student, I was really like, you know, a little brown noser. I don't know if that's a phrase now that I'm saying that, if that's appropriate, but if it's you're not there for your professors, you're there for yourself.
I don't think I would have done anything differently. I loved my time at SJ. I really, truly did. I liked all of the classes, all of the professors. I guess if I had to change one thing was to be a little bit more involved, like in clubs and stuff. But then again, I don't think it would have been possible either way. I always had like 2-3 jobs outside of school, and it was just, you know, it's either you socialize or you pay your bills. So it's not, there's no leeway there. But other than that, I liked my experience. I'm okay with, I'm more than okay with where I went for undergrad. I am perfectly okay with taking the year off before going into graduate school because I needed that time. It's important for you to realize that at some point you need some time for yourself. I remember my last semester, I drove home. I packed my car. I drove home to LA, and I cried because I was just like, "Oh my God, it's over! Like, thank God! Like, no more essays, no more, you know, readings. I'm over it. I'm over everything." But it was like a bittersweet feeling because it was a great experience. Yeah, I don't regret having that year off to just, you know, I bought myself a trip to New York City, and, you know, like I took some time for myself, and I am perfectly okay going through the graduate program now. And I feel like I had my time to kind of relax, and now it's game time and try to push this last year to really have my whole life together. Yeah.
I think that's awesome. Both of you have such a commitment to your personal growth. And even if, you know, in retrospect, you have something that you wish you had changed or something that you didn't, and you're happy that the way that it happened, I feel like we still learned from, you know, each of these perspectives. So I can't thank you enough, both of you, for coming today and talking to us and sharing so much about your life. I feel like I'm walking away with a lot of knowledge and a lot of encouragement. So I'll pass it back over to Janine. She's got a couple of things she wants to share before we take off.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. As always, another fantastic job moderating. And to our guests, I cannot thank you enough. You know, when we do this in person, I think I shared with you all, it's a very informal space. We're usually kind of just like sitting around a table with snacks and coffee and chatting, and the advice that you have been able to share with us this afternoon is so valuable for our current undergrads. I think for so many of our students, especially as their program's coming to an end, at that space of like, what do I do next? And there's so much pressure to like land that dream job or land that perfect spot in a grad program, and to really just, you know, have some grace for themselves and also really some pride of everything that they've accomplished, you know, during their time at San Jose State. This has been a year and a half of just more than we ever could have imagined. And so for our students that are leaving us this May, I just really thank you for your insights and your encouragement. And, you know, Karina, I love having you join us. I try to really keep my comments to a minimum in these spaces, but I'm like, my heart is bursting over here. So I just hope that you know that, how truly impressed and proud and excited I am for you, because it's been, you know, you have been persevering this journey for quite some time. And I'm just really excited to see you doing the work out there.
Thank you. I'm really happy I got to do this. I did this when I was in undergrad, right? I attended a panel, you know, just kind of seeing what you guys had to offer, like what kind of panelists were there. And it was a good experience, but now doing this, it's like, oh, cool. Like I get to do this too. Yeah.
Full circle, right? It's
You're on the other side. Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much to you both for sharing. And before we log off today, I want to go back really quickly and share my screen, because we do have a couple of upcoming events. You know, our alumni series is continuing, and we have a couple more sessions coming up. So next week we have some alumni from our special education department, as well as our single subject credential department. That's going to be next Wednesday at 4:30. And then in May, Danny's hosting this really fantastic CDNS alumni roundtable. I think one of the things that we've learned today is how transferable the skills are that you gain in the College of Education, and that really whatever you want to do working with children, youth, families, you're gaining such a solid foundation. And that's what our alumni at our roundtable in May are going to share. There are some students that graduated from the CDNS department and then went on to other career paths, working in education and special education, as well as administration. And so it's going to be, I think, a really nice afternoon hearing their journeys as well. And then we've got to take care of ourselves. So our peer advisors are continuing with their social events happening this week. So yesterday we had a aromatherapy Play-Doh session, and tomorrow is our paint night social. So still time to sign up. If you want to go ahead and scan the QR code to register. Got to take care of ourselves and have some fun while we're doing it. Another hobby for you, maybe, Allison. So again, I just want to thank all of our panelists and our attendees today for joining us. If you're watching us on YouTube, thanks so much for attending. If you have questions or would like to connect with us further, please feel free to send us an email, follow us on social, or visit our brand new website that just got redone. We're very excited about that. So again, thanks so much.